to have in the midst of us Hyun Hee Ban, the Chief of Social Policy Planning and Evaluations, UNICEF, Mr. Kaushik, Mr. Rao, and they will be talking about the plans of UNICEF in the coming years, the next year and the years to come further. And it's our pleasure and privilege to have them here. As you all know, the PIB and UNICEF together have been doing a lot of programs over the years, particularly in the last 2 years during the times of COVID-19 pandemic. Our joint efforts have resulted in a lot of good work. We could contribute our might to the spread of COVID-19 awareness, the spread of best practices, the spread of vaccine awareness, etc. In our multimedia campaigns, many a times, the State Minister for Health, Mr. Ma Subramanian, the Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Dr. L. Murugan, and the Lieutenant Governor of Judiciary, Madam Tamilisai Soundararajan, participated, and the higher officials of health, including the Health Secretary and the Director of Public Health, all participated. These efforts resulted in spreading the message wider. Not only that, our model, our partnership with UNICEF, PIB UNICEF partnership, was viewed very positively up to the higher ups in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And our secretary particularly appreciated our efforts and told other states to follow this model. We that way became a model for other states' units of PIB and the UNICEF. And we could also amplify through you, the friends in the media, print and electronic, and social media. And our concerted effort has resulted in amplifying the message, and our social media followership also has increased over this period. So it's a very positive, continuing association with the UNICEF we have. And it is a pleasure to have Madam here. She joined UNICEF headquarters in 2003. Her professional experience spans headquarters, supply division, regional office and field offices, and international GOs including the US, South Sudan, Sudan, Kenya, etc. She has been responsible for leadership and managerial support in social policy, program planning, monitoring and evaluation. And here today their agenda is to talk about the plans for the year and answer your questions and interact with you basically to get also key inputs as you are the experienced persons in the field. So with these words, I hand over to our colleagues from the UNICEF and Madam Ban. Thank you. Now,
Chennai office. UNICEF programs in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. I'll give a brief about UNICEF work that is currently being done in Tamil Nadu. And post that, I would request Hyun to give her opening remarks, her observations, and after that we'll open up the forum for questions. Where Kaushik is here, Kaushik Ganguly is our health specialist, who's been working closely with the government of Tamil Nadu on providing all appropriate support along with PIB. Briefly, I'll cover upon 3 points. One is UNICEF globally. There is a strategic plan which has been notified, passed by the UN Assembly for the year 2020 to 25. Based on that, based on the agenda that has been set, we also have at the country level, India level, what is called an India country plan, wherein it is for the period 2023 to 2027. That's for the 5-year period. So one, the objective is to provide a brief on what are the strategic plan that we have in view, and two, Mrs. Hyun is here essentially to meet government officials in the next 4 days in order to understand what are the priorities of the Tamil Nadu government and what have been our priorities in the last 4 years, and based on that take back as feedback from the state to the country office so that we can include in our country strategy. And the third is, of course, the social policy office itself, the Chennai office. What are the areas in which we have been focusing in the past few years, and what are the key kind of strategies that we are looking at Tamil Nadu, because UNICEF as such looks at Tamil Nadu as a model state. We don't even consider looking at just as a state for model for other states, but we look at Tamil Nadu, whatever UNICEF strategies that are implemented, as a model for the various middle income countries, be it Malaysia, be it Thailand. So therefore, UNICEF has a interest and role in taking forward some of the key initiatives that are done here, which some of them will elaborate, whether it's on child protection or health, on social policy, which we would like to document and take it forward as an implementable, scalable models for other countries. So a brief in terms of the strategic plan, UNICEF strategic plan for 2020 to 25. It's essentially guided by the, on the one side the COVID challenges, on the other side the achievement of SDGs. We are fast approaching 2030. So therefore, the strategic plan has taken into consideration the constraints that would be there, and how do we achieve, what should be the key programmatic goals that will help in at least reaching the SDGs goals by 2030. So by working through wide range of stakeholders, we have come out with child-centric SDGs for 5 interconnected goal areas. Okay, and these goal areas are essential. These goal areas is essential to achieve the child rights. So more than more than 100 states have already renewed the commitments to children's rights in the context of implementation of SDGs. Within that context, during this year, that is in the next few months, UNICEF India will also be coming out with its country plan. That's about the plan. And UNICEF, of course, has been working very closely with PIB in risk communication and community engagement for COVID-19 in Tamil Nadu. This involved basically sharing of information, mitigating rumors, effectively involving communities in response to the pandemic, and informing people of personal risks in decision making. Some of the collaborative works that we have done with various departments, health department, school education department, along with PIB, include training and capacity building, social mobilization and community engagement, special campaigns, 100 crore vaccination milestone campaign, producing mass communication materials, collaborating and
new strategic plan that was launched by the executive director. Child protection is one of our critical outcome areas. So we look at, as you mentioned, violence against children, sexual exploitation and abuse, and what we found during COVID-19 pandemic, because of the school closures, there has been an increase all around the world. We did what's called the community-based monitoring, like rapid survey recently, last year. It was called the community-based monitoring feedback. It was a semi-real-time way of getting feedback from community. There were concerns expressed, and based on these feedback that we heard from community, from government, and from different stakeholders, and the evidence, that we collect from academic institutions about the plight of children, we'll be using it to design our program. But I'll let maybe Rao or my colleagues to speak to the specific kind of program design for Tamil Nadu.
So I think the child. So the Child Protection Academy has been set up with the support of Government of Tamil Nadu, and the child. So the child, and it will be operational in a few months' time. In the Child Protection Academy, what we are trying to do is how do we kind of ensure that curriculum is properly designed for various kind of officials who are getting recruited into the government, whether it's police or judiciary or administration. That's the second. And third, of course, we are also working with closely with the school education department, trying to build awareness among the children and among the teachers. Apart from that, of course, the community involvement is very important. And the last initiative which we are planning for this year is essentially how do you sensitize the entire media itself in terms of reporting against child violence, reporting against child sexual abuse. And of course, the POSCO Act itself need to be properly kind of decimated to the right people. So these are some of the initiatives on which we have been working, and we hope to see much better results this year going forward.
Specifically regarding this child abuse, Adam was telling that
violence, various kinds, it's at home because of economic loss. So it's much, I would say, during COVID, it's become much accentuated. The domestic violence has become much higher. And second, of course, with the UNICEF, as I said, we are more of evidence generation and advocate with the government and support the government in taking measures in ensuring that appropriately it is dealt, whether it's through police or through teachers. That's what we generally do. Otherwise, if you want to add anything.
Yes, I mean, I don't have the specific details from the feedback, but all across the world in UNICEF, we did rapid surveys at the community level. So one was a learning loss, issues of, as Rao mentioned, issues of, domestic violence, issues of child labor. Those are some of the key issues that came up all around the world, where UNICEF, therefore the new strategic plan really emphasizes the need to have a protective environment. I mean, COVID-19, the second, we call in UNICEF learning crisis during the COVID-19. One of the biggest crises was also the learning crisis because of the very long school closures all around the world. And we often talk about, the human capital development. If we miss the opportunity to equip the children with these critical life skills, and not only technical skills, what we found is the well-being skills. The mental health issue became at the forefront. So last year we do a flagship report in UNICEF where we spotlighted the issue of adolescent mental health as being one of the key priorities. There was long durations of isolation. We had many children that lost their parents, their siblings due to COVID-19. So we need to equip children with those coping mechanisms and skills to talk about how they feel. There's issues of depression. How do they cope? So this is an emerging area that we're really working with different partners to try to design a program to support those children. So those are some of the issues that we look at. COVID-19 pandemic also spotlighted the critical importance of social protection programs. So countries, one is to commend India. India has the largest globally social protection schemes in the world. You have PDS, you have the Rural Employment Guarantee Program, MGNREGA. You have so many different schemes where this can be rapidly expanded to cover vulnerable families. However, we also learned a big lesson in UNICEF that it needs to be inclusive. Issues of migrants, they were not able to easily access the social protection schemes due to the documentation requirements. There were long delays. So as UNICEF, we realized we need to target those really outside of the periphery, the people with disability, migrants. So we need to do something that's social protection programs are designed in a flexible manner to support people. And then another key thing that came up, and you may have seen some news, universal child benefits. There are many studies over the past. The Overseas Development Institute, they even published a report. Those countries that did a child benefit scheme to provide cash transfer to families with children, they actually boosted the GDP. It leads to economic growth because with that cash that the family uses, they send children to, it's a virtuous cycle. They have the means to send the children to school or buy nutritious food, or they have the safety nets to find alternative jobs. So those countries that had child benefits actually saw a growth in the economy. And this is why in Europe, like for example, it's a much smaller country, Montenegro, they launched the child benefit scheme. I just read Tunisia this year, the government announced a child benefit scheme for the ages of 0 to 6. In Montenegro, it's 0 to 18. So they're piloting this scheme as a way to what's called inclusive COVID-19 financial recovery. So these are some of the models that we also like to advocate. There were many lockdown measures, not only in India, but also many parts of the world, including my country, Korea, where I'm from. There were no schools, there were no interactions with their peers. They saw parents and their siblings suffer from COVID-19. Some passed away. So they lost both their parents, or one parent, they lost their grandparents, they couldn't see them for a long time. They were not able to process something. Imagine, I as an adult was during lockdown and quarantine measures, I also, I went through it was very tough. And I'm sure you may have felt difficult times, and imagine a child, an adolescent. How do you process such an information? So this is something that we're looking at. This is one of the reasons I don't have the reports with me, but this is highlighted in what's called State of the World's Children Report that was launched in 2021 by UNICEF globally. It has case studies from different countries. In India alone, I believe our team has put together case studies, stories from different children where they face difficulties. We had this beautiful, story called My Hero. I don't know if you heard. My Hero. It talks about the journey. So you know My Hero. It's a beautiful story from a children's view of how they saw COVID-19. And it also talks about the importance of inclusion, because in there's stories of different nationalities, religion, different backgrounds, children with disability, where they went through the whole journey of COVID-19, how difficult it was. But one of the hopes and inspiration was, the support among peers, different messaging of hope. And I think this is what we need today. Hopefully we're getting out of it, and I'm sure that we will come out much stronger. But at the same time, this I don't think is the last pandemic. This is not the only disaster and emergency that will hit, because now we talk about climate refugees, climate migrants, different effects of climate change that has on children as well. So you raise a very good point that we need to address adolescent well-being and mental health issues.
What is the percentage of children vaccinated in India, and specifically in Tamil Nadu? And what is UNICEF role to give a fulfillment of 100% vaccination for children?
So I'll pass it on to the health social policy specialist, Kaushik.
Thank you. That's a very good question actually. 7 lakh children that has been identified for vaccination, and the vaccination program is going on through schools. Now that the schools have been started, and most of the eligible population of in that age group have been attending schools for the last 5-6 months. So it has been a fairly straightforward for us to identify the beneficiaries and do the vaccination process. In parallel, we are also mounting, like during the early phases of COVID-19 vaccination, we have mounted campaigns identifying the benefits of vaccination and why it is necessary for children to get this vaccine so that they can gradually ease back into the normal course of life. It's also, we have to realize that these children are coming out of their homes after a long time and is attending schools. And as we know, children are going to fraternize when they are in schools. They are going to mingle. So vaccination is very important for them. So that is the message that we are reinforcing through our partner agencies like PIB, media and other health department channels. And the vaccination process is very much on course.
A, of course, the migrant labor. No, I'm not talking about migrant labor just from other states, I'm talking about within the state itself. The point that you're mentioning in terms of, let us say, an auto rickshaw driver's kit, what does it look like?
Not only
Yeah, not only. Yeah, as an instance. What we see is that, of course, keeping COVID aside, there is obviously a lot of aspirational value that is there in every parent. I'm talking about just coming out of interaction with a parent who is class 6th or so, and after that he became a manual labor. But his kids are studying in Bihar in a remote village in a school. And he says, look, I want my kids to be educated. So the point here is, what is UNICEF doing in terms of ensuring that importance of education for economic upliftment happens. So there are some specific kind of interventions that we are doing. One is, of course, the entire skilling itself. Recently, Honorable Chief Minister has launched the program. So on the skilling part of it, not in a traditional sense. In the traditional sense is that you only encourage certain skills. Here, skilling more from a career guidance perspective. What are the various career options available? And in a playway manner, the workbooks are released. And these are available to the students not as a kind of curriculum part. That's one initiative. The other one specifically with respect to the slums, what we are looking at is there are two parts to it. One is the emotional aspect itself. So we are coming up with some kind of playway methods where children share with each other, like a kind of Pokemon kind of game we are designing, and we have piloted it. It's interesting, 3 or 4 people congregate at a place. It's a kind of role play and trying to understand what are their aspirations, what are their fears. So those are certain innovative things that we are doing specifically with the slums, so that there is much larger world that they are exposed to, but at the same time there is a conflict in terms of how do I reach that higher level in terms of education, in terms of better career opportunities. So I would say in 2 points. One is dissemination of information in a manner which is not very academic, because anything that is academic will not stick. So that's how we are looking at it, dissemination of information in a manner which is in a play way, in a manner which is accessible to them, and especially accessible to, because there is a digital divide, accessible in a manner which is textbooks, where workbooks are printed and made available to the kids. That's how we are looking at it.
Ma'am, you talked about how educational institutions are not seeing children come back to school.
In general, I think the quality of learning, I mean, that's an issue that comes up time and again. Of course, we have a curriculum, is it fit for the new age? For example, now I think many states have started looking at climate change related curriculum, the greening, to look at the priority issues coming today. But I think just to engage the student, because now it's been 2 years since the pandemic, I think the curriculum and the way of teaching should be different. So a lot of states, and I will commend a lot of the states in India that have really rapidly rolled out digital education platforms. I know that in many states, like in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, I think you've kind of looked at the digital education, but many rural parts of India do not have access to the medium, the device or the platform to be able to access digital education. So one of the key things that globally we have started identifying as a priority, because it doesn't only, it's not only a problem for India, but all parts of the world, especially Africa, digital education divide. This is a critical issue that we're supporting. We have a team called Technology for Development, looking at different issues of using technology for the good of development. So we saw in the recent National Union budget release the focus on digital transformation across all of the different programs, including health mission. So this is an area that we're looking at. I mean, I think in education specifically, if we don't address the digital divide issue, a lot of the children will be outside, not able to access the opportunity and really be left behind.
What are the new strategic plans to recover child labor?
Excuse me?
What are the new strategic plans?